Welcome to this episode of Textron Offroad Garage. I'm Ashley Helton, and this is the Stampede 900. Today we're going to teach you how to check and change your differential fluid. This is important to do periodically or if the differentials have ever been submerged. Before we begin our front differential fluid check and change, we need to get together a few things. We need our mobile 424 fluid, an 8mm Allen driver bit, an extension, a ratchet, and our funnel. We need to jack the Stampede up, but first let's put chocks under the rear tires. There's a specific place to support the Stampede underneath the chassis right here at the cross member. Next, we're going to jack the back up the same way we did the front. We're going to support the rear of the Stampede using this section of the frame rail. The Stampede is jacked up nice and level off the ground so that I can access the differentials. I'm going to begin the front differential fluid level check by removing the plug on the side of this diff. When the fluid level is good, it'll just begin to run out of the fill hole right here. The fluid level looked good, but I've decided to go ahead and change it anyway. You should do this anytime the vehicle is immersed. I'm going to begin by removing the plug at the bottom side of this differential. The differential holds 6 ounces of Mobile 424. Now that the oil is fully drained, I'm going to inspect the drain plug and the O-ring around it. Make sure that the O-ring is in good shape, there's no nicks or cuts or anything. Also inspect the magnet that's in the middle of the drain plug. This is here to capture any fragmentation that may have accumulated inside the differential. All right, I've got the plug pre-installed. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it up. All you need to do is just put a light snug on the plug. I've measured out 6 ounces of Mobile 424 fluid. Now I'm going to install it in through the fill hole. I'm going to go ahead and put the fill plug back in. Don't forget to use a shop rag to wipe up any we may have spilled on the chassis. We've got the front differential fluid checked and changed. We're done with that, so now let's move over to the rear. You're going to need a few tools and supplies. Start with 3 quarts of 85 W90 mobile gear oil. We need a funnel, a 1/4 inch Allen bit, 2 extensions, a 3/8 drive ratchet, 1/2 inch drive socket, and a Torx T30 bit. To access the rear transaxle, you're going to have to lift the bed. You may find it easier to remove the bed entirely. Bed removal is easy. All we have to do is take the stop bracket off the back, remove each hairpin clip, slide out our pivot pins. Be careful with the shock, don't let it drop. And then remove our hinge pins. I'm going to remove the Torx T30 screws at this portion of the chassis. This will allow the skid plate to drop down. This is a tip that's not totally required, but it makes it easier for oil draining. Next, slide the skid plate from underneath the retainer that's holding it up from the back. And then let the skid plate drop. All right, now the drain pan is put between the skid plate and the transaxle. All that's left to do is to pull the plug on the upper transaxle chamber and allow the fluid to drain. Don't forget to inspect the O-ring on the plug before reinstalling. Now that the upper chamber is properly drained, I'm going to reinstall my plug. Be careful not to over-tighten with your 1/2 inch socket. In order to refill the upper chamber, I have to remove the fill plug. This is going to take my 3/8 extension and my ratchet. Always inspect the O-ring on the fill plug. Now I'm going to refill the upper chamber with 13.5 ounces of 8590 mobile gear oil. To complete refilling the upper chamber, reinstall the fill plug. Make sure to put the final torque specification according to the manual. Now it's time to move our attention down to the lower chamber. Let's access the drain plug at the bottom of the transaxle on the passenger side. Be careful because the fluid's going to try to rush out. Before replacing the plug, make sure you inspect the O-ring around the plug for any cuts or nicks so that it doesn't leak later on. After the lower chamber has finished draining, let's reinstall the drain plug. Rather than access the sight plug on the driver's side of the transaxle, I'm going to fill this entire lower chamber through the speed sensor hole. Be careful with the speed sensor and always inspect the O-ring. Alright, let's begin to add the oil. The speed sensor O-ring looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and put it back in. Be very careful and do not force it. Don't forget to reference the service manual for the torque specification on the speed sensor bolt. Well, that about wraps us up for today. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube. And as always, don't forget your owner's guide and service manual information for additional tips. We'll see you next time.